All right, today we're jumping into one of the most fascinating ideas in all of technology, the incredible quest to build an artificial brain.
I mean, really think about this for a second. What if a computer could actually learn the way we do? Not just by running code we wrote, but by experiencing things, spotting patterns, and genuinely getting smarter all on its own. It's a huge question, and it's the one that kicked off this whole AI revolution.
So where do you even start? Well, the most brilliant ideas are often the simplest. If you want to build an artificial brain, why not look at the best example we have, our own? We're modeling it on nature's own blueprint. You see, for the longest time, the real dream for AI researchers wasn't just about making faster calculators. The holy grail was to build a machine that could actually learn, to create something where you didn't have to program every single possibility, but could instead just show it things and let it figure out the rules for itself.
And that big idea led us directly to this, the Artificial Neural Network, or ANN for short. It's exactly what it sounds like, a system built to mimic the web of neurons in our own heads. And its whole job, its entire reason for being, is to find patterns in all kinds of data.
Okay, so we've got this big concept of a network, but to really get it, we need to zoom way in and look at the most basic building block of it all, the digital neuron.
Think about it like this. Our brains run on biological neurons, right? Billions of them. Well, an ANN is built out of artificial neurons, sometimes just called units. Each one is like a tiny decision maker. It takes in a bunch of information, does a super quick calculation, and then decides if it should pass a signal along to the next guy in line.
So, how does one of these little guys think? It's actually a pretty simple four-step dance. First, it gets inputs. This could be anything, pixels from a photo or signals from other neurons. Step 2, and this is the really important part, it weighs each input. It basically asks, how important is this piece of info? Third, it just adds up all those weighted inputs to get one number. And finally, step 4, it uses something called an activation function to make a decision. Is this signal strong enough to pass on? Is it important enough to fire? It's like a tiny little bouncer at the door of a club deciding who gets in.
Now, having a bunch of these digital neurons is a good start, but it doesn't make the network smart. Not yet. A pile of bricks isn't a house, right? The real magic happens when the network learns how to work together. And it does that by learning from its mistakes.
And this quote right here just nails it. We're not trying to write a perfect instruction manual for the AI. Instead, we give it access to a whole bunch of examples and just let it try. We let it learn on its own.
So, how does it actually learn from being wrong? Well, the main engine for that is a really clever algorithm called backpropagation. After the network makes a guess, it compares its answer to the correct answer. Then it calculates how wrong it was, the error, and sends that error signal all the way back through the network.
To put it even more simply, the network literally works backward from its own screw-ups. It figures out which of its little neuron connections were the most responsible for the mistake, and it just tweaks them a little bit. It's a constant cycle of guess, check, and adjust, getting a tiny bit less wrong each and every time.
But how does it know which way to tweak things? Well, that's where the math comes in, with a process called gradient descent. The best way to picture this is to imagine all the possible errors as a giant hilly landscape. The goal is to get to the very bottom of the lowest valley, where the error is 0. Gradient descent is like a GPS that's always pointing downhill. It guides every single tiny adjustment in the direction that reduces the error the fastest. That's how it gets smarter.
Okay, so we've got our neurons, and we have a way for them to learn. We're all set, right? Well, not quite. To handle the messy, complex problems of the real world, we need to take things a step further. We need to go deep.
You see, the first, simple neural networks hit a major wall. They could only solve problems that were what's called linearly separable. Basically, if you could draw one single straight line to separate your answers, like all the red dots from all the blue dots, the network could figure it out.
But think about it. What real-world problems are that easy? Is recognizing your friend's face in a crowd that simple? Or translating a sentence from Spanish to English? No way. You can't solve those with a single line. So, what was the solution?
The answer, and this was an absolute game changer, was to add hidden layers. These are entire new layers of neurons that you sandwich in between the very first input layer and the very final output layer. They're what allow the network to see beyond simple lines and start modeling the complex, messy, nonlinear patterns that make up reality. And that right there, that's it. That's where the famous term deep learning comes from. It's not some mystical concept. A deep learning model is just a neural network that has this extra depth, multiple hidden layers.
And that depth is what gives it the power to find patterns that are way too complex for any human to ever program by hand.
So all this talk about layers and neurons and math, what does it actually do? Why is it such a big deal? Well, that brings us to the final and maybe most important part, the real-world impact of all this.
This stuff isn't science fiction anymore. It is all around us, powering our world every single day. Deep learning is the magic behind computer vision. It's how your phone finds faces in your photos. It's the engine behind those amazing real-time language translation apps. And yep, it's the brain inside the voice recognition on your phone and smart speakers, understanding what you say.
And here's the most incredible takeaway. We've managed to build this powerful tool by, in a way, looking in the mirror, by getting inspiration from our own biology. And that just leaves us with one final, massive question to chew on. If this AI is modeled on our own brains, what are the true limits of what it can learn? Thanks for joining us.